first, it's Burkina's gold. It's not his gold. That's the first thing. What business is it of his? It's none of his business. It's Burkina's gold. It doesn't concern him.
France will no longer bleed us dry. That was the message Traoré delivered. Not with words, but with action. He did not send a memo. He did not ask politely. Just one decision, and France's gold supply from Africa is gone. For decades, France has maintained a firm grip on West Africa's natural resources, quietly raking in billions from the region's gold, uranium, and oil. But Ibrahim Traoré is rewriting the rules. He did not just cut off France's gold supply, he pulled the plug on decades of quiet exploitation. Now the French president is scrambling, his diplomats are panicking, and the world is watching a young leader dismantle decades of French leverage. This is not just economics, it is geopolitical warfare, and Traoré may have just fired the first shot in Africa's new era of independence. Gold is not just shiny, it is power. It is a safe haven asset that countries stockpile to back their currencies and stabilize their economies. It powers industries and symbolizes wealth. France holds over 2,400 tons of gold in its reserves, one of the largest stashes in the world. But to keep that supply steady, they rely on African nations like Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is one of West Africa's most resource-rich nations. In 2024 alone, the country produced over 60 tons of gold, a staggering figure that places it among the world's top producers. Gold is not just a mineral here, it is the lifeblood of the national economy, accounting for nearly 70% of its foreign exchange earnings. But for many years, most of that money went to foreign companies, not to the people of Burkina Faso. Long ago, when France ruled Burkina Faso as a colony, it took gold, cotton, and other treasures to make itself rich. However, even after Burkina Faso became independent in 1960, France kept a strong hold through special deals, soldiers stationed there, and companies that got gold for cheap. French businesses, like a company called Orano, made big profits, but Burkina Faso only got a small part of the gold's value, sometimes just 20% or 25% of the profit. This unfair system made people in Burkina Faso want change. They wanted their gold to build schools for their children, hospitals to care for the sick, and roads to connect their towns. They dreamed of a day when their country's wealth would stay home. That dream came alive when Ibrahim Traoré, a leader who turned hope into action, became the leader of the country. Ibrahim Traoré was not the kind of person you might expect to lead a big change. Born in 1988 in a small town, he grew up in Burkina Faso, full of promise but held back by unfair systems. He joined the army where he learned to be strong and smart. By 2022, when he was only 34, he took charge of the country in a peaceful change of power. He did not do it for fame or money. He did it because he believed Burkina Faso could be great if its people controlled their own wealth. For Traoré, the fight over gold is not just economic, it is symbolic. It represents the broader battle for sovereignty, dignity, and freedom from external domination. This is why immediately Traoré got into office, he spoke to his people with a clear and strong voice. He stood in Ouagadougou, the busy capital city, and talked to a huge crowd. "Our gold belongs to us," he said. "Our land belongs to us. Our future belongs to us." His words were simple, but they touched everyone's hearts. Young people cheered, older people nodded, and families felt proud. Traoré was not just a leader, he was a spark that lit up the whole country, showing them they could dream big. But he did not just talk. He got into action immediately. In 2024, he took back 2 big gold mines that a company from London used to run. These mines had made billions of dollars for foreigners, but now they belonged to Burkina Faso. This was a huge step, showing the world that the country was ready to stand on its own. Traoré also made new rules for foreign companies. They had to give the government 15% of their mines and teach local people how to do the work. These rules meant more money would stay in Burkina Faso and more people would learn skills to build their future. But that was not all. The biggest change came when Traoré built a new gold factory. This factory could process 150 tons of gold every year, turning raw gold into shiny bars right in Burkina Faso. Before, the raw gold was sent to other countries to be mined, and Burkina Faso lost a lot of money because of this process. Now, with its own gold factory, the country could keep more of the profits. However, Traoré just got started. Traoré had a big plan to make Burkina Faso strong. He did not stop with the gold factory. His government checked all the foreign companies mining gold to make sure they paid the right taxes and took care of the land they were mining. These checks found ways to get more money for the country, so every bit of gold helped the people. Traoré made the companies pay higher taxes and follow new rules so they would help Burkina Faso grow, instead of just taking its gold. Soon enough, his reforms started yielding significant results. On May 20, 2025, Traoré held up the first gold bar made in the new factory. The Burkinabés were happy, proud to see their gold shining for them. This factory was not just about gold, it was about showing the world that Burkina Faso could do great things, and they just got started. On June 6, 2025, the government shared exciting news. They were creating a special company called the Société de Participation Minière de Burkina, or SOPAMIB. This company would take charge of the mines Burkina Faso owned and make sure the money went to schools, hospitals, and roads. It was like a smart plan used by other countries, like Botswana, that got rich by keeping their resources. But Traoré also wants to take over the Pura gold mine, a big mine where foreign companies still had some control. By bringing it under Burkina Faso's control, he would make sure more wealth stayed home. However, Traoré is not stopping there. Traoré also cares about the small miners who dig gold with their hands. These people work hard but get only small amounts of money. He created the National Precious Substances Company to buy their gold and pay them fairly. Between 2024 and early 2025, this company collected over 20 tons of gold, helping thousands of families. Miners could now feed their children, send them to school, and build better houses. This plan shows Traoré's heart. He wants every person in Burkina Faso to share in the country's wealth. But he is just getting started. Traoré has another big idea: saving gold to make Burkina Faso's money stronger. In early 2025, he started building a national gold reserve, something most African countries do not have. This means keeping gold in the country instead of selling it all. It would help Burkina Faso stand tall, free from foreign money like the CFA franc, which France controlled. This was a brave step, showing the world that Burkina Faso was ready to be truly independent. With each reform, Ibrahim Traoré tightened Burkina Faso's grip on its gold, determined to ensure the nation's wealth served its people rather than foreign powers like France. His government's new rules, from nationalizing mines to building a gold refinery, sent a clear message that Burkina Faso was ready to take charge of its future. These steps laid the groundwork for even bolder actions, as Traoré prepared to reshape the country's role in the global gold trade, strengthening its economy and inspiring its people with a vision of independence. However, the biggest shock came when Traoré stopped gold exports to several foreign companies, especially the French ones. Posts on social media claim this was a direct blow at France, though no official statement named specific countries. But the order came after companies refused to pay higher taxes, and Burkina Faso seized over 2 tons of gold at the border. This was not just a warning, it was a power move. France had underestimated Traoré's resistance and now faced a harsh new reality. Burkina Faso's gold was no longer theirs for the taking. In France, President Emmanuel Macron saw a new world unfolding. His country had counted on Burkina Faso's gold for years, using it to make money and keep its market strong. Traoré's reforms meant France could not take gold so easily anymore. Inside the Élysée Palace, the reports of Traoré's decision to halt French involvement in the gold trade sparked immediate concern. According to diplomatic insiders, Macron convened emergency meetings with top economic and foreign policy advisors, desperate to understand the full extent of France's exposure in Burkina Faso. Unlike military withdrawals, which France could frame as strategic redeployments, the loss of gold revenues presented no diplomatic spin. This was an economic loss with real-world implications. In private, Macron's administration expressed alarm over Burkina Faso's nationalization efforts. The withdrawal of mining permits and the creation of national gold reserves directly impact French companies and could set an example for other African nations. France's economy, already strained by domestic challenges such as rising debt and public unrest, relies on access to African resources to stabilize its markets. The loss of Burkina Faso's gold could intensify these pressures, particularly as gold prices surged over 25% in 2025, reaching over $2,400.00 per ounce amid global geopolitical tension. Emmanuel Macron tried not to react, but his response to Burkina Faso's gold policies has been marked by frustration and diplomatic tension. In public statements, Macron has accused African leaders, including Traoré, of ingratitude for France's historical support, particularly its military aid. In 2023, Macron remarked that African nations forgot to thank France, a comment that Traoré dismissed as hypocritical, arguing that France's wealth was built on African resources. This exchange highlights the personal and ideological clash between the two leaders, with Macron defending France's global influence and Traoré championing African independence. Macron has also faced criticism at home for his handling of African relations. French opposition parties have accused him of alienating key allies in the Sahel, while business leaders have raised concerns about the financial implications of losing mining contracts. In response, Macron has sought to strengthen ties with other African nations, such as Ivory Coast, where France maintains a military presence. However, these efforts have done little to counter the growing anti-French sentiment in West Africa, fueled by Traoré's stance and actions. What Macron is facing is not merely a breakdown in bilateral relations with Burkina Faso. He is staring down a full-blown legitimacy crisis for France's role in West Africa. For decades, France has relied on a blend of soft power, economic leverage, and military presence to maintain its influence. But that entire framework is now breaking down, and Macron's challenge is not only how to respond to Traoré, it is how to redefine France's relationship with an entire continent that is no longer willing to be managed. More than just a clash over gold, this is about the collapse of Francafrique, the informal network of economic and political control that has tied France to its former colonies since the 1960s. What Traoré is doing, what he symbolizes, is a dissociation with that past. A new generation of African leaders is emerging, more assertive, less forgiving, and fully aware of the resources beneath their feet. Sources close to the French presidency describe Macron as feeling cornered and undermined. His efforts to brand himself as a progressive reformer in Africa has been shattered by a young revolutionary soldier who is winning hearts and minds not with diplomats, but with audacity. Macron, once seen as a modernizer, now appeared outdated, outplayed by a 37-year-old revolutionary captain. With the bold reforms, Traoré did not just stop the export of gold. He cut off France's gold supply and stopped a legacy, one built over decades, now dismantled in months. However, Traoré knew Burkina Faso needed friends to keep growing, so he looked for countries that would help without trying to control. On May 18, 2025, he met with leaders from Russia in Ouagadougou. They offered machines, money, and technical know-how to make Burkina Faso's gold mines even better. On June 11, 2025, a Russian company signed a deal to send new mining tools, helping the country dig more gold and create jobs. This was a big win, showing that Burkina Faso was important to the world. But not only Russia tried to work with Burkina Faso, China also offered to work with Burkina Faso. On June 9, 2025, Chinese leaders offered to build roads and a power plant for $1 billion, 0 cents, asking for some gold in return. These roads would connect villages to cities, and the power plant would light up homes and businesses. Unlike France, Russia and China did not have a history of ruling Burkina Faso or other African nations, so it is a true partnership. These deals have made Burkina Faso stronger, letting it choose allies who share its aspirations. However, this is not just a Burkina Faso-France conflict, it is a global restructuring. Traoré's gold cutoff is part of a bigger movement, with African nations demanding control over their resources. In the last few months, it has sparked reactions from Moscow to Washington, and it is changing how the world works. On May 19, 2025, Mali said it would make its gold mines stronger, learning from Traoré's ideas. Mali's leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta, said Burkina Faso showed the way and his country wanted to follow. Niger also started planning to take more control of its gold and uranium mines, with news about it on June 5, 2025. For other African nations, Burkina Faso is like a teacher. Countries like Ghana and Zimbabwe have also started talking about keeping more of their gold, wanting to copy Traoré's ideas. These countries were inspired by what Traoré did and wanted to do the same. From Senegal in the west to Kenya in the east, young people look up to Traoré. He has shown them that Africa could be strong by keeping its wealth and making its own choices. Additionally, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger joined together in a group called the Alliance of Sahel States. They promised to work as a team, sharing ideas and helping each other grow. This group was like a family, dreaming of an Africa where every nation used its riches to build a better life. But Traoré's reforms are not just influencing Africa. Burkina Faso's changes were so big that the whole world paid attention. Around the world, people are seeing Burkina Faso as an example. Countries in South America and Asia are watching closely, thinking about how to use their own resources better. Burkina Faso's deals with Russia and China showed that small nations could work with big ones as equals, choosing partners who helped them. This was a new kind of world where countries like Burkina Faso had a big voice. In 2025, gold prices went up to over $2,400, 0 cents for an ounce, because everyone wanted it. Burkina Faso's choice to keep its gold and make its own bars made it a big player in the gold market. Companies that made phones, computers, and jewelry saw Burkina Faso as a new leader. By keeping its gold, the country showed others how to use their riches to grow strong. But France had a dilemma. France had to think hard about what to do. Losing Burkina Faso's gold meant it had to find new ways to stay strong. French leaders started looking for other partners, learning that African countries were now in charge. But this made it a major problem for the US too. On May 28, 2025, General Michael Langley, head of U.S. Africa Command, warned that Burkina Faso's gold policies could destabilize the region. He claimed Traoré's using gold revenue to protect his regime, not the people. Though Traoré supporters called it U.S. propaganda, the U.S. worries that jihadist groups, already controlling half of Burkina Faso, could exploit economic chaos if Traoré's gamble fails. But the real story is that Africa is awakening. Traoré's moves are inspiring a generation. On June 4, 2025, posts on social media called for a gold revolution across Africa. Young people see Traoré as a hero, fighting for a future where Africa's wealth stays home. The question is, can he deliver without sparking chaos? Traoré's work is not done, but what he has built is amazing. Burkina Faso's gold now pays for schools where kids learn, hospitals where people are treated, and roads that bring people together. The country's gold factory, its saved gold, and its new allies are all part of a big dream. A dream of a Burkina Faso that stands tall. This dream is not just for one country, it is for all of Africa, showing that every nation can use its riches to make life better. As Burkina Faso moves forward, it carries the hopes of millions. People in villages and cities, in Africa and beyond, see what Traoré has done and believe they can do it too. The golden future has started, and its light is spreading, showing a world where every country can choose its own path, and every person can shine. Ibrahim Traoré is leading the way, a hero for his people, and a star for a continent ready to rise. Traoré's decision has reignited African consciousness in a way that few expected. His speeches are shared in classrooms, social media, and youth forums across the continent. For many young Africans, he represents a new generation of leaders, those unafraid to challenge the global order, reclaim national wealth, and redefine Africa's place in the world. Gone are the days of leaders quietly complying with former colonial powers. In their place are men like Traoré, military-turned-political leaders with a people-first agenda and a deep desire for true independence. With the gold supply stopped suddenly, France faces a growing problem. Its ability to maintain influence in Africa has historically depended not just on diplomacy, but on its grip over critical resources. Burkina Faso's gold, which accounted for a significant portion of France's overseas mineral interests, now represents a lost asset and a dangerous example. If Macron responds with heavy-handed tactics, such as sanctions, covert interference, or retaliatory policies, it could backfire spectacularly. African populations are watching closely, and any perceived attempt by France to punish an independent nation could deepen anti-French sentiment and accelerate the dismantling of French influence in the region. Will France embrace a truly equal partnership, one where African nations have full control over their resources, economies, and governance? Or will it double down on protecting its remaining interests? If Macron wishes to preserve any meaningful presence in Africa, he must abandon the illusion of control. Real partnership requires not just economic reform, but a willingness to confront the darker legacies of colonialism, acknowledge historical wrongs, and genuinely empower African leadership on African terms. Traoré's resistance could ignite a continent-wide reawakening. Already, leaders across Africa are paying attention. Some are cautiously inspired. Others are fearful of losing their own foreign backers. But the people, especially the youth, are watching with hope. A generation born long after colonial rule is finally demanding a future that is truly independent, not just in name, but in structure, economics, and international relations. This is not just Burkina Faso's moment. It is a mirror for Africa's broader struggle, a desire to rise, to rebuild, and to reclaim its place in the world, not as a pawn, but as a power.
They came for our gold. They came for our future. But today, Burkina Faso says, no more. No more theft. No more silence. No more France. This is our land, our wealth, our victory. Sovereignty is not requested. It's taken. If you believe in African sovereignty, don't scroll. Comment your thoughts. Subscribe to Traoré Rises to stay informed. Like and share to expose the truth they don't want you to hear. Together, we reclaim the voice of a continent.